Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today I am making a sweet tooth mask. Not that. Back in the 90s there was a video game that came out called Twisted Metal, and in it there was a psycho clown with flaming hair that would, be a character option for you to race with. Recently I heard that they were coming out with a TV series based off of the video game, and I thought it would be a fun thing to try and tackle and go ahead and get a jump start on because it sounds like it's going to be interesting. So there's one weird thing about me liking Twisted Metal. I was terrified of clowns as a kid up until about my teenage years. Like, I don't know, there was just something about clowns. What could have traumatized my childhood? Yeah. So today I am going to make Sweet Tooth's mask from Twisted Metal out of foam and maybe a little bit of leather and metal. Let's get to building. If you're interested in building this mask, there are free templates down in the description below the video. It's the last link, and I typically upload them the day after a video goes up. I was surprised at how quickly this template came together. Cut out the pattern and trace it onto your materials. I'm using some 6mm foam for most of this build. With lighter foam, you can use a pencil to make your markings. This way you don't have to worry about Sharpie bleeding through your paint job. With all my parts traced out, I'm ready to cut them out. I start by cutting them into smaller, manageable chunks that I can easily rotate on my work surface. There are some highlighted blue and green edges on some of my pieces, which indicates angle cuts. Green is an outward 45-degree angle, and blue is an inward 45-degree angle on my patterns. You'll also notice U-shaped marks all along the edges. Those are registration marks meant to help you align the corresponding pieces together. Be careful when using a hobby knife. Most of the scars on my hands come from hobby knives slipping through the materials or not paying close enough attention when I'm cutting. Assembly time is pretty straightforward. I went ahead and glued up the left side of the mask to test it out, and I'm confident to do the right side now. Most people don't realize that these video clips are usually the first go at me trying to build this thing. A majority of the time it works, but I still have to make adjustments as I go or completely start over on occasion. I laid down a layer of contact cement on all of my edges and let it set. Close up the big V-shaped darts, then truss the registration lines as you join corresponding pieces together. Once you have both halves together, use the under chin piece to pull it all into shape.
To smooth out all the seams, I take a sanding drum on my rotary tool and buzz over where they join to round them off. Then I make a second pass with a stone bit. If you plan on getting into foam fabrication, you really should try to pick one up. You can get some decent off-brand ones for 20 or 30 bucks. I have like 4 or 5 different ones on hand at any given time in various price points. My favorite is my foot pedal operated Dremel that you see me using. It's the silver one with the extension on it. It'll show up here in a second. You could do the sanding without a rotary tool, but it's very slow going if you do. Depending on the images you look at, Sweet Tooth may or may not have an upper lip. To me, just the lower with the red gum showing looks a bit more menacing. I cut out the lip, round over the edges first with a sanding drum to remove the bulk of the material, then the stone bit to smooth it. Once smoothed, I use the top corner of the bit to gouge out wrinkles. Make sure to wear a respirator and work in a well-ventilated area while sanding foam. It kicks up a lot of tiny particles that you don't want in your lungs. Now I'm going to carve out the teeth from a single piece of 6mm EVA foam. I start by defining all the lines with a wood burner. When I start to sand, it will cover up the pencil marks, so this makes it easier for me to see, and it gives me kind of a depth gauge for where to aim on my sanding. You should also wear a respirator while burning EVA foam. The fumes that the foam puts off is pretty nasty, and you don't want to be breathing that stuff in either. Another approach to this would be to cut out each individual tooth, shape it with a rotary tool, and then glue it back together. I'm comfortable enough with the rotary tool to do it all in one go. This is from countless hours of practice. Is it just me, or does this mask base kind of look like Rash, Zitz, or Pimple from the 90s video game Battletoads? No, just me. I'm ready to glue his teeth on the inside of his mouth. I've already contact cemented both pieces, but I need to cut out some damaged areas around his mouth first. I purposefully make jagged sawing motions to gnarl it up a bit and hit it with both rotary tool and a wood burner to give it more texture. When gluing the teeth in, I I work from the middle out to the edges to space it properly. For my nose, I'm going to carve it out of some 48mm EVA chunk. I got this from TNT Cosplay Supply Online. If you don't have the thickness of foam, you can always just glue together layers of it to get the thickness you want to carve from, or you could take a simpler route and substitute in a cat toy, bouncy ball, or some other round object. You could even get an actual clown nose if you wanted to make it simpler on yourself. I'm using foam because it's what I have on hand, it's what I've already built most of the thing with, and I can control exactly how big I want it to be. I cut out the bulk with a box cutter, then round it over with the sanding drum on my rotary tool, and then the stone bit to smooth it out. You can see the steps get repetitive here. One of Sweet Tooth's eyes is patched up and crossed out, or maybe it's supposed to be closed. I don't really know. I didn't template out this shape because it is heat formed and cut to fit. I heat up both sides of the foam with a heat gun, then push a super glue rounded bottom part into it to help it shape it. As the foam cools, it retains the stretched out shape. I then trace it to where it will sit in the eye, carving out a couple of details and then super gluing it on the inside into place. Two coats of Plastidip. As far as the paint job, I build up colors by layering on various techniques. First, I get a basic coverage with some splotchy paint, then dab off a majority of it with a paper towel. I make some dry brush passes, I use a sponge, I throw on washes, and once the white and dirty areas are done, I paint on the red, then repeat those steps again. I'm using some Platifex acrylic paint for all of this step. The strapping is a bit interesting on Sweet Tooth, and in order to fit my head, it actually took a couple of adjustments. Instead of using the normal elastic, I thought it would be fun to use leather with some metal fittings, duct tape foil, and some fencing wire. Really, I just tried to copy what it looked like in the image, or at least what I could see. There are a total of 5 straps. The 3 on the top join the side bits in the back with a belt buckle, I guess, or clasp holding them together. I cut it to size, put duct foil tape at the ends to make it look like metal brackets, punch holes in them, and make fake buckles out of metal squares and fencing wire. My battery died while I was recording this, so I didn't really get all the steps in here, but I just made it up as I went. His head's on fire at the top, so really you could hide most of this with faux flames anyways, or a wig.
And we are finished. Here is the end result. Overall, I think it turned out pretty cool. I went a little bit more with the strapping than I normally would for a foam build, but it just really seemed to fit. Now, I could have tried to make this out of foam, and it would have definitely been something that's doable, and you could definitely do it yourself, but there's just something about that extra feel, and I mean the sound that the metal makes as it clangs, and I don't know. Maybe you'll try and make one of these yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to pull something that used to terrify you as a kid out into the real world, and now it's gonna sit in your man cave and stare at you until somebody buys it. Please. Maybe you'll get some, and inevitably they're gonna ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these, tell them, much props. Well, let's see if it works. Give me fuel, give me fire. Don't copyright infringe, mark me, whatever. Peace out.
If you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and want to see more builds like this one, please consider joining these awesome people listed here with me over on my Patreon to build a bigger, better, more creative community together.